ahead and play it back. You ain't gonna touch me. You not gonna do nothing. You are not above me. I bet you wish you was me. I know it, I know.
What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast.
Yeah, get that energy up.
We're here on a Wednesday afternoon in nice Las Vegas, Nevada, joined by a special guest who normally hosted the show from LA, as well as a new software Y coach and wonderful friend, Euan McNicholas.
Hello, Euan. What's up?
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
What's this posture?
Stop. Already we're into the posture.
You said you're going to have some good posture today. It's okay. It's okay, big guy.
I'm gonna let you finish. That's your intro. You stole your intro. Why am I frozen? Why am I frozen?
This is why I took the intro.
This is your frozen.
What's going on here, Guapo? You're killing. Why you do this to your man? We're
sorry,
supposed to be
buddy.
boys, Guap.
Listen,
What's going on here?
it's been a mess
Bro.
from the jump. I'm gonna cut to
Bro,
Landon. We're gonna
fucking screen.
we're gonna figure this out.
I literally knew this was going to happen.
That's Berkey's poker face.
I knew this was going to happen. He's like, Matt's like, oh, I want to do the intro from the bike. I want to talk about everything that happened yesterday. I'm like, you know what? I know what happens when people call in. There's just always going to be issues. And that's okay because we all fall. Mm-hmm. Matt's just malding right now, not getting able to be back on the screen. It's amazing.
No,
look, he's Matt.
Okay, good. We're
There
back.
he is.
Woo! Hey
Yeah,
guys,
there he
sorry.
goes.
We're here in HD, live from the Bicycle Hotel and Casino in Los Angeles. I almost said Nevada, California. We got a lot to talk about today. Not really, actually, a lot. We just have a lot of live at the bike stuff to talk about. Bet you guys didn't think that was going to happen anytime soon.
Oh, man.
Landon, why don't you take over the hosting duties? I'm here for the duration, but I want it to be your show because, as you can see, it looks like I'm calling from a bomb shelter somewhere.
Can you
in the
please
Midwest.
hold up a newspaper to show proof of life? Because, I mean, this is pretty brutal.
Is Chin in there with you?
I have my creatine.
That's creatine.
Okay.
Creatine's good enough for me. We're in. Lock in, baby.
okay.
Lock in with the creatine.
We're locked in, baby. Let's do it.
Wow. This is the first time you've been on the show, Sir McNicholas.
It is.
How's it feel?
Yeah, it's good. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
I
Wow.
hit you with all the hard questions early, huh?
Yeah.
Listen, we have to ease into it. This has become, from last year, one of my, I would consider us best friends or best mates, if you will.
Yeah, besties.
Besties. For sure.
Yeah.
So
I love that for you guys.
I love that for me too. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, we were playing some tournament in the Win, I think. And we played a fun hand together. And you were surprised that I was bluffing.
I was, yeah.
And that's what it was.
I opened Queen 9 of Hearts under the gun. He defends big blind. Board ends up running out where a turn is like a good lead spot for big blind. And he leads. And I was like, all right, this guy's clearly good at the card game. And then I just have a hand, turn open-ended, river straight. He jams, somehow has a bluff. And I'm like, how do people actually have a bluff here? You must be good at poker. I'm Landon. Nice to meet you.
Yep.
And we both had long hair back then, too.
Yeah.
You never met?
I had really long hair.
You
I didn't know
Landon-
you when you had long hair. I'm trying to picture it on you right now.
Yeah, it was a different look.
Yeah. A different look.
It was honestly a pretty good version. Like, you know, if there was a show called Young Hagrid, Euan would be Young Hagrid
So
Hagrid?
from Harry Potter.
Jack Hardcastle used to
I
call
don't
me
get the
Skinny
Harry Potter
Hagrid.
references.
Really? He used to call
Yeah.
you Skinny Hagrid.
He used to call me Skinny Hagrid.
Makes sense. Can we get a graphic for Brian? I
For a
need
little skinny?
Brian to commit to the bit here.
I mean, I will commit as long as I know what the bit is.
Landon, we got to work on some things. If you are able to start approaching women and having a filter for high quality women that you'd like to date, the same way that you do at curating friendships with other talented poker players, you're gonna be all right, man.
Oh
You're
my!
gonna do really well.
I saw one of the funniest like Instagram reels along this conversation where it's like a guy, like guys when they try to introduce themselves to like their guy friends, and it's like infinite Riz, where it's like, yo, you looking big as fuck, my guy. Like you've been in the gym, I see you doing numbers, and it's so easy. And then it's like when guys talk to a girl they don't know. Holy shit, you talked to me. Holy shit, and like running away. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I talked to a girl. But look, we'll get there. You got to start small.
Mm-hmm.
You got to start small.
You're doing work. All of the young individuals within this game that you've introduced me to have been so remarkably. I don't even like know what the proper word is. I want to say mature, but like the reality is like they're all like such upstanding young gentlemen.
Yeah, I have an eye for talent.
With your age group overall has not been that.
Yeah, I remember when I first kind of met, quick shout out to my boy Philip Shing, legend in the streets, where as soon as I met Philip, he's like older though, I was like, yeah, this guy's going to be an absolute animal when it comes to poker, and just has been going on the sickest rip since taking the jump to moving straight full-time professional. And I think part of it is seeing how people view the game as well as the way that they act during. Like even after the hand, like there was no like anger or like anything like that. It was just kind of fun. We were just like, it kind of is what it is. And look, all of the girl stuff later, that is for a conversation for another day. And right now we're here with, it's crazy because I'm so happy that we met, genuinely. Like,
yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, it's been good. When I went to London, I ended up staying with Euan and the boys over there, the mates, if you will, for a couple weeks. Went to the 24-hour fitness and introduced him to like foam roll stretching. That was fun.
Yeah. I do not like foam roll stretching.
Like lats or like right here on the side of the shoulder was probably one of the funniest experiences I've ever had in my entire life.
It was not fun for me.
So anyways,
I feel like the side of your quads is much worse. Like on your like lateral side, that's like the most painful.
Yeah. I mean, it's all painful until you kind of get into the stretching routine. But anyways, how did you get into poker in the first place? Like we kind of have a similar-ish story.
Yeah. I mean, I played a bit while I was at uni, kind of not too seriously. And I ended up quitting uni at 2 different times. I wasn't very good at studying for subjects I didn't really enjoy. And then at the start of the pandemic, I was an outdoor activity instructor before the pandemic. So I was like teaching climbing, kayaking and stuff.
Euan, if you can get that mic a little bit closer.
You have to feel attacked by it.
I feel attacked.
You have to let it consume you.
Violated, I think, is the word Berkey
Is that better?
likes to use.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Great. So I was like climbing and kayaking and stuff like that. And then that all got shut down because of COVID. So I kind of didn't really know what to do. So I just started.
Needed a new activity.
Yeah, I started playing poker and then kind of just have got really, really lucky since. And here we are.
I don't know if it's just luck.
There's been lots of luck
I got
out
a
there.
little insight into your poker game when we were filming Poker Out Loud, and you are a pretty sharp mind when it comes to the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've done lots of study and I've worked really hard, but I've also run in the top 1%
it's kind of like
for sure.
both, right?
Yeah.
You work hard and you're fortunate, and it leads you to where you are.
Yeah, no, I'm very aware that I've run very good, but I kind of think there's always going to be like a lot of survivorship bias for people that make it in poker.
Yep.
So
yeah,
it's a lot more likely that you have run
reality.
very good than run bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very good starting place when it came to even how I knew, like, I guess like when we met, I'm like, oh, like this clearly knows what's going on, because everyone that's has made it in some capacity. And I would consider playing online high stakes Zoom on stars and playing toughest games in the world effectively in the online arena. We all know that hard work goes into it, but at the same time, there definitely still a survivorship bias of there is a chance that somewhere before those lines, you've ran terribly and horribly bad, that poker just wasn't for you anymore, or just didn't have the ability to have the role to sustain. right? And of course, there's other soft skills involved, like bankroll management, like being able to move down and still play good poker.
Yeah.
But at the same time, realizing that, yeah, I am lucky to be here is a valuable thing to have in the back of your mind that kind of keeps you grounded.
Yeah, for sure.
And now you're playing tournaments.
Well, yeah, I'm still playing cash. I'm playing a mix of tournaments and cash, kind of a mix of
What do you
live
enjoy
and online.
more?
There is something about playing live tournaments and going deep that will never
thrill,
get old.
right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of I agree with you.
I love tournaments.
Yeah.
Do you
But
want to?
I also love cash games.
You want to tell us about your first live tournament ever? It's very similar. We have very similar stories. It's crazy.
We do. Both used to have long hair. Yeah. I won the first live 1K I ever played, which was
That's amazing.
yeah, it helps.
Really? You had been playing a lot of tournaments online before?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah,
so
I've been playing
experienced.
lots
This is the
online.
first live one.
It wasn't the first live tournament.
You had
but
just
it
turned
was,
21. Is that why you hadn't played any live ones?
No,
before?
no. So it's gambling age in the UK is 18 anyway.
Oh,
so,
okay, gotcha.
But no, it was coming out of lockdown. So before then, I'd played some tournaments before that. Like I'd played some of the student tournaments.
Where was this at?
This was a Grosvenor poker tournament in the Vic in London. Yeah.
And then you got the tournament bug from there.
Oh yeah. You just
When
chase
you
them
win
around.
your first one, it usually locks you in.
Yeah, they got me for life.
Man, I remember when I first transitioned to playing tournaments more, when I first moved out to Vegas and played online tournaments, came out for the bracelet series that first happened because of COVID. I had a resentment to MTTs. I remember this. I was like, I'm pretty sure there are tweets from a couple years ago of, I will never play MTTs professionally. This is the worst idea I've ever seen. And then I won the MSPT in November, like the first live tournament I played in Vegas. And now here we are, where I just have not played cash live in a very long time besides stream games, and have devoted all of my time and focus when it's in the poker sphere into MTTs, because there is translatable skill sets that I'm sure Euan and Matt can attest to, where just learning SPRs, learning how to play wider ranges, and knowing the bounds of your range can allow you to then extrapolate and move those into different arenas.
Yeah, I mean, nearly all of the study I do is for cash games. I just play some GTO for the tournament study, and then run some pre-flop stuff, and that's kind of about it, really. And then all the like hardcore study I do is for cash.
Yeah,
and like it's so transferable. I really think it is.
Yeah, we are very much the same. And I'm gonna let you cook as we carry on with this interview a little bit more. But the people are here for the fucking clickbait, man. They want to hear about the drama. And as far as I saw, Hellmuth burnt the fucking bike down yesterday. He had enough.
Yeah.
Did you guys happen to catch the little stream we were playing yesterday?
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah, we saw some solid poker.
I like that we got a heads up from production that Phil Hellmuth is good. Don't go anywhere. Phil Hellmuth is gonna blow up in about an hour.
It's
man.
actually the teases are super sharp.
Yeah, for sure. Because nobody's gonna click off of that at that point.
Okay, so I have a few elements that I want to talk about this stream, and I guess like it's probably best to just go in order. So first and foremost, before my ass hit the chair, Hellmuth was already ready to just grill me. He had been sitting on this for a while. It was clear he wanted to have a tough combo with me, and he leads with, "Okay, Berkey, I have something I want to talk to you about. You were whining," and I just cut him off. I'm like, well, if we're talking about whining, I assume we're talking about you at this point. So the needles flew pretty quick. But I want to get it out of the way first and foremost, like because like we're gonna have a lot of fun at Phil's expense on this show. It's natural. And to be clear, like I want to make it more clear because we had this conversation off stream. And I don't think that it comes across this way because I do take such a hard stance. But I like Phil as a person, and I like what he's done for the game. I even like the like bad boy bratty persona that he's built. Like you do you, man. Like if that's the marketing tactic you want to take, fine. You're not hurting anyone in the process. I'm very I'm hypercritical of the things that I think can potentially have fallout for others. And I think that as somebody who's well educated in the space with a platform, it's kind of our duty to alert the public when something is like a really awful buy. So like I would never be the one to tear Phil down for selling at like 1.05 to a high roller. Do I think he's worth it? Probably not, but I don't give a shit because that's a fair markup for winning players. And now we're just debating whether or not he's winning.
Yeah.
But like the conversation we were having yesterday was, why did you drag me so hard for selling in these 100Ks at big markup when I've won $200,000 for U-stake consumers? And it's like, well, because you're literally selling at a markup that is unbeatable by computers. Like we don't even know if a sim would have greater than 1.3 ROI, right? And to be clear, like what I think it may get lost is I don't care if he sells at 1.3. The market is out there. Let them decide. But I'm not going to let him. And maybe that's poor phrasing. I think it's important that there are voices out there that are willing to communicate to people who may fall for a bad buy that you can never make money off this. If you want an entertaining sweat, go ahead, pay the 30% markup.
Right.
But
you just want people to have
you
just want the consumer to have the information.
Yeah. Like I tried to compare it to other markets, but it would be as if there were, other sort of like investments. Maybe the wrong idea because it is kind of entertainment as well. But it would just be like markets existing where we absolutely know what the max rate of return is, and people are just charging more, and there isn't much information out there to explain to consumers that they're capped and that they're just basically feeding money into a slot machine, so to speak. Yeah. Where there isn't really the big payoff.
It's and we even saw it when Keating said he wanted to put some action on Stake Kings, and he wasn't even selling at markup and was selling at face and was like, look, I'm going to be honest, I'm out here blasting, and people are going to know that if they're going to like take a piece and take a sweat, they're in it for the gamble. They're not in it for, this is definitely a positive ROI situation, and I think that this is a good investment. Whereas if you're selling at 1.3 and you leverage your likeness and say 1.3 is beatable, I'm the best in the world, when we have pretty good like theoretical data to assume that nobody in the field is winning at 1.3 in this way.
What does your ROI have to be if you're selling at 1.3?
Technically, it can be whatever you want, right? But like some people go through the ideas of half of the money goes to the investor, half goes to the player. So like it's double what you're selling at. So if it's 60% ROI, so like investors get good deal. Some people chop it up in 2/3 and they say 45%. So you're charging 30%, making 15% on your gains, right? It just depends on what you think is fair. The
point is obviously 30.
Right.
I mean, that's the simple answer.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't matter who profits. It's just like in order to break even, it's obviously 30.
Yeah, like if you're selling at 1.3, the ROI to break even is 30.
Yes. And that's the big difference. Like Landon highlighted the key point here is that I don't give a fuck if Keating sells a losing proposition because he was very transparent and straightforward and said, look, guys, I'm blasting. If I were you, I would not buy me. Right? Phil does the opposite. Phil leverages his celebrity and just like goes pretty hard about the fact that he's the best to ever do it. And that this is a great buy and that he's made so much money for U-stake investors and all this. He goes the route of used car salesman, and that's where I start to take issue with it because there are people that are just going to like him and listen to him and believe what he has to say, and that's where I think it becomes problematic. Now, if you noticed, when we started speaking out really heavily, his high rollers that had unbeatable markup attached did not sell, and I think that that's a clear representation of educating the market a little bit, which is generally going to be a good thing, albeit probably not for the field. Like the field probably benefits from him being able to sell at these outrageous rates.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So it's kind of the in-between of opinion versus not necessarily giving education or stepping in where you don't belong, but just kind of making it known that what is being advertised isn't what's being sold to you. And that's kind of the big deal.
I just want to be clear that it's not a personal attack. Like,
right. It doesn't matter if it's Phil doing it or anybody else.
Right. I truly enjoy Phil. He's a lunatic in some of the best ways and some of the most insane ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, whatever. We had our little bit of back and forth, and I think he understood, at least by the end of it. Like, I think we came to an agreement where he realized that I wasn't doing it out of malice, and I'm not just now. The whole Phil stinks thing. Again, that's not out of malice, but like I wholeheartedly believe that. Like, there are two conversations to have. There are two conversations to have, and they're incredibly separate.
Right.
He is one of the best World Series of Poker tournament players of all time. Period. Hard stop.
Numbers wise,
I don't know.
Ewan's molding right now.
Yeah.
I don't know about this.
Just gonna buy that.
It's like, yeah, he's won 16 bracelets, 17 bracelets, whatever it is, but
16.
like a lot of them are in small fields. It's like you say, he's the best ever. Is there like take the main event, right? There's at least like 200 people you'd take over Phil if you had to, like, if you got an opportunity to take 10%.
I think what Berkey's saying is the totality of the World Series as it's been throughout the years, right? Yeah. He's not going to say he's the best player at this exact moment, but over the course of it's like saying Phil or like Tom Brady. Tom Brady wasn't the best quarterback to play last year, right? There's way better quarterbacks than him, but he's the GOAT.
Phil was the best player in the
the
90s and the noughties where kind of everyone was clueless.
I think what Phil has done has managed to transcend the decades as well as the game formats. So do I think he's the best player in any singular field? Maybe not. But I think that he's like top tier in most fields under 10K buy-in. And the fact that he's been able to maintain that for 35 years,
right, throughout
like all of the mixed games, et cetera, there's a very small number of people in that conversation.
Yeah, think about the people that were winning, right, in the 90s, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
like I'm on the side of taking the stance that as an all-around competitor in many different fields, all of the mixed games, all of the different tournaments, the guy gets W's. And to say that he doesn't get W's is a little bit of not looking at the data that we've seen of just having 16 wins.
Yeah, but then you run like these tournament variance calculators and you see these outliers the whole time. It's just like, it would be shocking if there weren't people that went on runs like he does. And
it's true.
Humans are just so results oriented that you can't like dismiss the fact that because someone's won 16 bracelets, they have to be the best.
I don't think you're going to convince Euan, Burke.
No, I'm not trying to.
He's a numbers guy.
I think what Euan is saying is more true now than it was in the past. I think that Phil has some sort of internal comprehension of risk and perhaps like how it applies to the ICM model. Like he more so than anybody else knows that your final chip is worth more than all of the other chips combined, right?
Right.
He's understood that for many, many decades. There are things that like he does incredibly well, particularly pre-solver.
Sometimes too well.
Well, but particularly like pre-solver that just allowed him to be an outlier. Like I understand like correlation does not equal causation, but I think that if we look at the entire scope of his work, there was at least time periods where he for sure was the best in the field. And I think you could say the same about Daniel and about Phil. And you could probably say that about Deeb now. There are just like a handful of standouts that, sure, they're survivors and they're on the right side of variance, but they also just like do something niche that we can't really model and we can't really fully grasp that allows them to just be there consistently year over year, event over event.
Yeah, I think a good metric to kind of view where people see everyone as a whole is kind of looking at the 25K fantasy draft, right? And seeing how much people that are in the space, especially in the mixed game realm, give points and attributes to people that they deem to be worth the amount of points being allocated to them for then having them on the team where other people can't have them themselves. Yeah, and Phil always goes for big numbers.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I know almost nothing about all these mixed games. So if he's supposedly really good at them, and I imagine he probably is. It's like
the beauty is no one knows anything about these mixed games. I think it's just Dan Zach.
Dan Zach knows a thing or two. I like that guy.
Yeah. now that we gave him his flowers, let's get into the real discussion. Because I got to tell you, man, this guy, the worst decision he's made in his 35-year illustrious career was saying that he would sit deep stack in cash games.
Yep.
He fucking stinks, man. He stinks. Like, do not give this man 1,500 big blinds. He's confused. It goes against his entire strategy of tournament poker and how to navigate. And we were kind of talking about this off air. The thing is when you sit shallow, the degree to which you can make a mistake is restricted by the number of big blinds you have in front of you. If you only have 40 big blinds in front of you, well, you can't really make a mistake for more than, like, I don't know, call it 15, 20 big blinds, something like, which, don't get me wrong, is massive. But like when you have 1,500 big blinds in front of you, you can make ridiculously huge mistakes.
Yeah.
You can make the $50,000 mistake on the river.
You could really tell that he was just out of his element, right? I mean, obviously the big hand, the blow up hand, but like, you know, when you're sitting there and there's 700 big blinds in the middle, which is like a bigger pot than, you know, maybe he's ever played, big blind wise, I don't know. But then you have 700 or 1,000 big blinds back. It really it really complicates the issue.
Yeah, I think that he was very much exposed over the last 2 days. I think his ace-king fold on Hustler was indicative of how risk-averse he is, and recognizing that, like, with characters like JR, who plays very solid, that was the 3-better, and then Keating, who plays, like, literally any 2, it's just too scary to take a hand like ace-king that only makes strong top pairs and not sets or straights or flushes, and go to the flop 1,500 big blinds effective. Yeah. So he just dumped. Yeah. You know, he just didn't want to fight for the pot, and he got out of there. And he was afraid of making top pair because what if it runs into a set? He's not ready to play a 600K pot with an inferior hand, you know? So I understand, like, internally where it's coming from, but this is where he's supposed to be humbled. This is the moment we've all been waiting for, where he actually starts to listen to the Phil Stinks chant. Because, again, it's not that he's a bad poker player. It's that there are certain disciplines that he is not wired for. And deep stack cash is one of them, right? It's like what I was saying the other day. Like, I would never run around, even if I think I'm like a top pro, which it depends on the day, to be quite fair.
Not yesterday.
Even if I felt like I was world class, I would never run around going like, I'm the fucking best PLO player you've ever seen. I've played less than 1,000 hands in my life. Like, what are we even talking? And it's like, I'm up so much money in PLO because I got lucky to win a heads-up match versus Aussie Matt for like 1.7. I can never lose it back. I'll never play stakes high enough at PLO to ever lose that back. Yep. But like, I'm not going to point to the scoreboard and just say like, I'm the greatest fucking PLO player of all time. I'm up. Same thing with short deck. I played like 5 sessions in my life and I'm up like 1 million. But like,
thank you, Ben Lamb, for the pool in the backyard.
Shout out to my man Bemba. He knows what's going on. Appreciate you, big dog.
He's playing golf today with Tiger Woods. You know
Tiger Woods, yeah.
I did see that. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Yeah. All it costed him was a pool in the backyard.
I think we actually have a clip of the hand as it went down. Guapo, if you want to fire that up, we'll get to see how
Which hand are we talking about here?
We're talking about the Kings versus Ace King hand.
You guys are
the link I sent you.
You guys are killing me.
You can do my Joey Ingram one, or you can do the link that he sent you.
I sent you the link.
All right, I got you.
Just got sucked out on. And he calls. Oh my God, he pays it off. The mad genius with the perfect river sizing. Gets a 50 ball out of Hellmuth on the Diamond River. This guy is incredible. And Hellmuth's done. He's done.
If I can't trap the crazy guy with ace king versus aces, I'll just quit.
Why do you say aces? He showed us his hand.
Comes back and loses a massive pot to the mad genius. And
I was so mad when I saw that flop.
You sure, Phil? The only way to get out of a hole is to keep digging.
And Robbi with the perfect needle.
Come on, Phil.
Hellmuth is gone.
Can I lose a big pot and quit?
Man's got a decent point.
I
I mean, no?
Right? You got to find oil or water. Keep digging.
Robbi, just keep going. Hellmuth keeps coming back to the table. I think he might have forgot his phone charger or something. But they're going to need to turn the AC on because it is real.
The commentary was very good.
I was about to say, Will Jaffe,
crushed it.
We fucking love you.
Yes. For Phil.
Can't believe he's leading.
Poor Phil.
This might be a record for him.
Second worst loss I've had in 15 years.
Wow, you heard it first.
Handling it well.
There he goes.
Handling it well.
He's gone.
No, you want it.
Needles keep coming.
I have to say both Matt and Robbi's like needles to Phil were just elite.
They
was
were
great.
they were just spot on, just so good.
Man, the best part about that stuff, like especially, I was telling Euan and Brian pre-show that you might be one of the best losers on camera. Like you can lose and still act that way, and win and still act that way too.
You should see me off camera.
I know you're being tame.
Yeah, yeah. Why do you think I had a seat for a decade? JRB will be the first one to tell you I'm the most entertaining loser that you'll come across. Because like you have to be, man. That's your job.
Yeah.
Keating might have a shout for the most entertaining loser
That's
ever.
true too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. That is fair.
He's got S tier up on lock for sure.
Yeah, he does it with swag.
Honestly, the perfection of when Eric Hicks was going through the analysis of if that was versus anybody else on the river, I would jam, but versus Phil, I go 50. That was a absolutely perfect line and mastery from young Eric Hicks. Thank you for that. It made me my heart so warm. My heart's so warm. I was like, wow, this is how poker works in a nutshell, right? Mm-hmm. Eric played the man. Eric played the man.
I mean, honestly though, like, could you even manufacture something like this? Like, could you imagine scripting something? How perfect, right? Like, what a perfect scenario. Phil traps himself into an oblivion to Eric Hicks, the only guy at the table who covers him, who's a fucking wild man in his own right, and finds a way to put in another 250 big blinds on the river when the fourth diamond hits and he has two kings, no diamond, claims he has aces even though he showed us his hands. And then the victory lap Eric Hicks took, guys, you have no idea. Like, I'm sure you caught bits and pieces of it, like, as a viewer at home. This was nonstop for, like, the next 4 hours. He's talking about how it's a bucket list item, how he might just quit poker now. He's done the impossible. He's kicked Hellmuth out of the game. Like, you can't bring these pros into our house. This is my house type of shit.
That's amazing.
It's such good TV. And I will definitely pat Phil on the back for this. Like, though I think that he handles these things very poorly, of course, he's a good sport about taking the needles. And that's the bigger conversation here, right? It's like, we talk about Phil because Phil talks about Phil. Like, if he wants to amplify himself to this degree, well, then we're going to zoom in and we're just going to pick it apart because it's fucking funny. And the memes are just endless.
Right.
But he handles it pretty well. And on top of it, like, it's must-see TV, man. Like, everybody showed up to watch Robbi yesterday. Was she even there? You know, it's like she barely played a hand. She wasn't even all that talkative. She got a couple good zingers in there.
She got some good zingers in, yeah.
Yeah.
The only way to get yourself out of a hole is to dig yourself deeper was actually a very good one-liner.
You're either gonna get oil or water. Oh, it was good.
Oh man, but there were definitely some inconsistencies between Hustler Stream Robbi and Live at the Bike Robbi from that sample size. That's for sure.
I mean, that was the first I played with her. By the way, also, I she's very much a delightful person. Like, I get it. She's very like charming, works the room very well, right? Like, she just does a great job of being personable. Everybody was like, oh, it's going to be so awkward when you sit there. I was very positive it wouldn't. And she definitely never said anything like out of line to me. I was kind of disappointed, to be honest. Like, I thought we were gonna have a sparring match. I was fucking ready, man. I came with material, you know. I had a whole rap sheet between her and Phil. I'm just like, all right, let's go. Like, I can win the war of wits when it comes to sparring verbally. But she wasn't really into it. Having watched like all that film that we watched on her, I don't know what the hell is different between old Robbi and Robbi now. I don't know if it's, you know, a monetary thing or she's like gotten coached but like the only way to describe the way she played was like random and passive. I think I told you guys off air, like there was a point where we played a 5-bet pot where she had ace king and I had kings, and we reached the flop of like 3 SPR, and I bet 20% on Jack 10 9, and she just check folded, and it's like that hand just purely continues. And I'm not even talking about in theory, like I'm talking about, you know, old man coffee isn't folding ace king on that board. You're literally just like drawing to the nuts and you're getting the right price. So it's just like, I can't wrap my head around it, man. I'm not insinuating she cheated. I truly have no fucking clue. But I'll state it for the umpteenth time. That Jack 4 hand blows my mind. It is the most out of line thing I've ever seen in my entire life. None of it makes any goddamn sense. Like, just nothing makes any sense to me whatsoever. The only thing that I know to be true for absolute fact is that the setup at Hustler was very vulnerable. And at a bare minimum, it's less vulnerable now. So whatever happened, I have no fucking clue. But moving forward, it seems like we're going to get a better version of stream poker.
Yeah, for what it's worth,
that's good. Yeah,
I kind of put out the tweet yesterday. I got some traction of the. I've yet to see live at the bike Robbi bluff river once. I can't remember seeing one, and not in the sense
of
it.
She checked down 10 high versus me.
What? Yeah, it was.
She checked down 10 high after check raising and barreling.
Right,
yeah.
You guys had both had a flush draw.
Yeah, you had ace-6 of clubs. Where's the club for the scam? That would have been some good TV too, and financially, I would be very happy to see that.
What are you doing if she jams river, Burke?
I fold. I would have folded if she bet 20% live.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't beat anything.
Actually, you know what? This leads me to a good question. Well, first, let's go back to the Eric Phil hand real quick. I think that when it comes to the river call from Phil's side, we were talking about a little bit pre-stream. I think that call was pure entitlement. Like,
bro, he wanted out of there. He wanted out of there. That was going to be his final hand come hell or high water.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting smoked out, man. He did not know what he signed up for when he was buying into that game 300,000 effective. I think he thought, like, okay, I'm going to buy in super deep, but I'm going to set the lineups. They're going to be safe lineups where, you know, not too much damage could occur. Fucking Eric sits down with 300K and covers him. We got Yang, who claims that he's a fucking race car driver, but this guy's playing like a goddamn GTO bot for 9 hours. You got Ozzy Al, who's like insanely competent, sitting 150K effective. I come in 100K deep. Like, we were there for blood. And he had to realize very fucking quickly, like, 1,000 big blind pot was going to occur. It was just going to happen. And, and if he was in the mix, he better have the nuts.
We were talking about it like pre-show when stakes were 100, 200, and there'd be opens to 1,200, 1,400, 1,000, 3 bets to 7,000, where this isn't a 100, 200 game where 20K is 100 big blinds.
Right.
You're now playing where 100K can just go in like fucking butter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was playing like...
This is every live game I've ever played. And that's why, like, you know, we talk about this all the time. I'm like, you know how many 1,000 big blind pots I played with one pair? And it's like, this is how it happens. When the average open is 5x and, you know, people cold call 4 bets with kings instead of putting in the 5 bet and shit like that, like, you see flops and people get married to their hands because they don't understand the equity threshold change.
35 big blind 3 bets.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They also get like way too splashy for like normal actions. Like, you know, when it goes raise, 3-bet, call, that's supposed to be 2 ranges of hands. But when the open is 5x and the 3-bet is to 30x, and then the call comes through, like that should be a very different set of hands, especially whenever you're 500 big blinds effective, right? Like you should be very, very, very tight. You're out of position playing a massively inflated pot. But we're just not. And that's what's beautiful about live poker.
Yeah. And I guess when it comes to that, there was a hand you played against Yang when you had King of Hearts 10 and he had the Jack Duck awfully, and he went for the river bet for 25K. And I was talking with Brian in the car, and I saw the look on your face that you wanted to jam river so badly.
So the graphics were wrong. He had Jack 10.
He had 2 pair?
Yeah.
That makes way more sense.
The whole hand is so fucked. He had Jack 10. Yeah, you guys think that he had Jack Deuce off under the gun, raised, and then called a check raise on 10-9-6?
That's what
that's what the graphics say.
Yeah, I was like, this is what's happening here. Why is he floating you on the flop? And
he's a race car driver. He likes to go fast. Why is this such a?
Yeah, I thought my hand was indifferent between calling and jamming. I didn't think it ever really folded, to be honest.
King of Hearts bad.
It's not bad though. It blocks his. So here's what I knew in the moment. By the time I had played that hand, I was positive that Yang was a pro. So I was also positive that he shows up with bluffs in this line and that his sizing sequence was actually pretty good. So I check raise flop for pot. He calls on 10-9-6, heart, diamond, spade. And the turn is the Jack of clubs, I think, completing the Badoogie. Or no, sorry, the Jack of hearts, bringing the backdoor hearts in. So now it's Jack 10 of hearts out. I decide to check. He bets 3/4. I call. And that sizing is like really good. It's all inclusive. It's going to have 2 pairs, sets, straights, and plenty of bluffs. He'll have like ace, queen type of hands. Queen 9 perhaps. So I call. River is a brick. And I check and he overbets. He bets like 25 into 20. And my first inclination was to fold because I'm like, people don't bluff this spot. It's way under bluff. But then it just clicked to me. I'm like, no, this guy is for sure like a Macau pro, 100%. He definitely has bluffs here. I've seen him play a couple hands versus Aussie Al, where like he made good calls. And also I'm pretty confident he was like bluffing a few spots. So I was like, no, he definitely has the right combos here. And the King of Hearts, I think, is actually pretty good because it reduces the amount of king queen floats. My check raise was big enough that I don't think he peels all king queen.
Well, it's Jack 10x rainbow, right?
It was 10-9-6 rainbow, but heart, spade, club.
Yeah.
So I don't think he has king queen of diamonds.
Yeah, fair.
And now I reduce him from having king queen of hearts.
Yeah.
Which I think is very important. Which is what led me to call instead of jam. I think if I have king 10 of king 10 with the king of diamonds, perhaps maybe I just jam a little bit more. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. Maybe I still just shove because he doesn't have king queen.
I wonder how much of a difference there is when it comes to the practical live environment when people show up with king high flush draws and barrel them too much because they have king high, and finding bluffs from other spots might be different. But if you have the read
what king high though?
King 8, right?
That's it.
King 7.
I mean, king 8, king 7, and he has to be opening them under the gun.
That's
kind of it.
Well, yeah, and I was coming from the sense of if you want to have a hand like king of diamonds, like the non-backdoor suit, it's more likely that he has those combos of bluffing when he's in a polarized spot where finding bluffs is hard as is. So blocking a couple combos can actually make a difference. But at the same time, I don't fucking know shit about X 100 big blind pots, and I'm just speculating.
I think you're right when it comes to calling. I think I should probably want to call with the king of diamonds and jam with the king of hearts.
Euan, what are your thoughts?
I don't fully follow the hand history. So how bad could it be?
See, you know, the same.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just remember looking at that hand. I'm like, I saw the wheels turning, like very much so, where you kind of took a little bit of time eyeing him up a little bit, I suppose, and wanting to go for a jam, but then Jack 10 makes a lot more sense than Jack Duck.
Yeah, of course. And I also so I thought he was a pro, but I didn't know how good he was. I knew Jack 10 would bet, but I wasn't sure that he would allocate it to an overbet, right? So like in my head, I'm kind of hedging a bit and taking some hands out of like, well, he never has a single Jack, that's for sure. And I don't know if Jack 10 or 10-9 ever go for it like this. I mean, I know that they do in theory, but I don't know if he's necessarily falling through. But like ace queen is just a very natural bluff here, and he's just going to have that in full.
Yeah, probably float like folding flop sometimes too, like bad suits.
Yeah, sorry, that's true. You're right.
It's still one of those things that finding bluffs in these spots are hard. And I was talking with Brian in the car coming on the way here. The issue where we thought that Jack Deuce was the hand, and the issue when it comes to using a polarized size with a merged hand, right? Where Jack Deuce, in theory, would never be worth an overbet on the end, but there's still a percentage of the time you get called by the hand like yours, right?
Bro,
like a 10x.
Eric loves to do this. There was a hand versus Ozzy Al where Ozzy Al check raised big on like 7-6 deuce, and Eric
he had
called.
8.
Yeah, and it ran out. So the final run out was 7-6 deuce, 6 deuce, and Ozzy Al gave up on the river with 5-4 and checked. And fucking Eric went for it.
How does he find the bet there?
Huge with 8s.
Yeah.
Trying to get called by ace high, the Mega Master.
Yeah, and Al folds and goes, "Did you have an overpair?" And Eric just very confidently goes, "Yep."
Of course he did.
Man, I think that when that's the case, and the issue when it comes to finding the hands that are too weak to put into the polarized size and merging them, a good way to combat that is by turning your bluff catchers into bluffs.
I agree. Yeah.
Right.
I
But
agree.
now you're
It's
risking
just,
a lot of money.
It's expensive. Yeah, it's fucking expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, as a man who rocketed off $100K in honor of Robbi J, it's not cheap, man.
No.
I lost my mind in that hand. I'm so dumb. Like looking back at it.
I love when it cuts to you. Guapo, you're the best.
I'm so dumb. Like I could have just peeled pre and just like, lost small, probably check raise flop and whatever. But we were playing the Jack 4 bounty, obviously. I didn't like lose my mind completely. But the bounty was relatively small. It was 500 at 1K. So I stood to make like $5,000 if I get this through. I made it 7K pre. Like, what are we doing?
What are we
What
doing?
the fuck are we doing, man? Just fucking don't do this.
That is not tortoise approved.
Honestly, though,
I really thought he was gonna fold here.
I like this donk jam.
Yeah, I mean, I had intended to donk jam if I improved, and I considered the ace an improvement.
Yeah, you should have gone for the river jack.
I also just thought like he was really weak. Like I thought he had a hand like 6s, 7-6, maybe 8-9, which I know I beat 8-9, but I can never call, and he's obviously gonna bluff.
Right.
So I just thought that there was like this big chunk of the middle of his range that this was gonna work. Motherfucker trapped me with kings. This guy's never not 4-bet kings in his life.
Switching up his game, man.
It was really the Eric Hicks show. That motherfucker went hard in the paint.
He's such a fucking party, man.
He went hard in the paint.
He's such a fun guy, and like he stacks me, and then he's like, "Hey, next time you're in town, if you need a car or a place to stay, like just hit me up. I'll take care of you." It's like,
can he give you a car for Vegas? So you need a car again.
You
lost the car to him.
He bought this 71 Stingray, and he doesn't like it. So
okay,
like,
does that mean we like it?
No, God, no, bro. I mean, yes, like it's a classic car. They're incredible. And like my nephew would love it as a project, but like they don't have power steering, they don't have air conditioning, they don't have like modern radio. It would take a lot of upgrades to make it a daily driver.
Yeah, but it's leather jacket culture, baby.
That's true. That is true. They're really fun cars though. If you've ever had a chance, my uncle had one, or not my uncle, my cousin when I was a kid, and they fucking rip. So he's like, yeah, next time you're in town, you can just take it out. Honestly, like, I do kind of want to take him up on it because I haven't driven a stick in maybe 2 years. And you'll never know this joy, Landon, because you're in the Tesla era where the car's just going to do all the driving for you.
I have my permit test tomorrow.
There is no better feeling than having 800 horsepower and the ability to manually shift. Like, it's just fucking nice.
Are you saying that you got the horses in the back?
Yeah. Actually, yes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Man, there were some hands on that fucking live stream that just had my head spinning. One of them was the woman of the hour, Robbi, with the cold call 3-bet, call 4-bet with queens. Flop comes 6-4 deuce rainbow. Check. B25 all in. Pot and a half.
Queen 6-4.
Queen 6-4. Queen 6-4. Queen 4 deuce.
Yeah, Queen 6-4 rainbow.
Yeah, this one, Queen 6-4 rainbow.
Yeah.
This hand, when I was telling, we were telling you, and Ace-4 of hearts here, seeing this is so tilting. It's so tilting. Call small check raise, sure. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Getting jammed on.
This is also when I knew Yang was a pro. These motherfuckers just showing up in a 4-bet pot with Ace-4 suited. Like, you're not fooling me, bro. You ain't no race car driver. If you are, it's only part-time. You're out there in the streets grinding these fucking solvers.
Yeah. Ace-4 is a good hand, man. I love a good Ace-4.
Bro, every time I show up to live at the bike, and they're like, oh, yeah, we got this guy in from Macau. He's a huge whale businessman. Every fucking time, they're the best player in the game.
Gotcha.
100% of the time. The only exception to that is Frank. Frank gives more action than anybody I've ever met.
We love Frank.
He's the best. But everybody else, yeah, like they're all fugazi as fuck. They're all a bunch of Wesleys. I was telling that story yesterday how the first time I played with Wesley on Hustler was his second time playing on the stream. And he was claiming it was the second time he had ever played poker. And he's just playing good, right? Like, he's not giving anything away. He's maybe a little bit too loose free, but he's just playing good. And like halfway through the stream, he goes, Matt, do you know my friend Aaron? I go, Aaron. He goes, Aaron Zhang. He told me to tell you hi. And I'm like, okay, I knew you were a fucking pro.
Man, they outed themselves. Yeah. Sometimes they self-report.
Self-report. Yeah.
You never want to self-report.
So it's safe to say Phil is not going to be playing today.
He's not.
He flew back home,
which is good news because that means that I have a seat. Do you believe that I was on the fence of having a seat or not?
How?
Like, yeah, they got to like. How am I losing a seat to this fucking professional race car driver who just plays goddamn like a AI robot? I'm out there firing off 100K with Jack 4 high. Who do you want in the game?
Hey, Kev Martin got his expenses paid back from Phil. So maybe if you hit up Phil, he can pay for your flight back to Vegas since he's not going to be there today.
Maybe. Yeah, Kev Martin's in the game today. I think Maria Ho may be there as well. Me, Robbi. I think Eric Hicks is coming back again. Obviously, Oziel is there. I'm not sure who the rest of the lineup is, to be honest. But
is it the
I know
same
I have a
stakes?
seat and we're starting at 2:30.
Oh, man, that'll be fun. Honestly, this has been the most interested I've been in live stream poker in a while. Like, yesterday was genuinely a fun stream to watch.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, okay, you show up, it's 6-handed, everybody's good at poker, playing 1-2, and opening the 2.5x, getting 3-bet 2-11x, and just like playing an online game live. This was just rocketing it off, different sort of characters going on, a bunch of things happening at once. Eric out here with the Opus 1 for everybody, and just calling 3-bets with kings. 5
bottles.
Wow.
That's so much Opus 1.
Phil really does make the game interesting and entertaining, though, because he's such a baby about everything. It just is very entertaining. He's great.
How would you know? He was there for 2.5 hours. We played for 14. Yeah, I agree. What I do notice though is that I don't win in fun games. I win in tough games, but not fun games.
Yeah, you've done very well in tough games. It's weird.
Yeah, I think I let my guard down too much and have too many of the Jack 4 moments.
Maybe.
Like, I was just on autopilot that hand. It was just like, oh, I have a bounty hand, and it's a clear 3-bet. Now, like, we go.
I don't know, man. Variance is weird. Like, there's a universe where he folds kings, and then you look like great, right? We have that too. That is just a very real part.
I think there's a better chance he folds if he's stone sober than 2 bottles of Opus in.
Yeah.
You got to play the man.
Sure.
Like it was so fucking wonderful hearing versus anybody else like all in versus Phil. I bet 50,000. I know he's calling me. He's not calling all in, but he's calling 50K.
I wish you guys could have saw his victory lap, man. He's just like strutting through the bike, chest out, like, Tom, how's it been? I haven't seen you in a while.
God,
all
amazing.
Right. Yeah.
He's a fanboy of Hellmuth, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean, like, for him, this was for sure a bucket list thing. Like,
right.
You know, him and JD were kind of saying they play for the thrill, you know, like they don't need the money.
Right.
So getting to cause a Hellmuth blow up is just worth a lot to them.
Yeah.
And
he has a story for the rest of his life. It's all about the story.
Right.
That's a real thing, man. Like, just enjoying and having the experience that cannot be replicated in a different environment. Like that, like what happened yesterday cannot happen again in that form.
Right.
Right. But having that experience, being in the spot, being able to just play that hand in the first place, and like living in the iteration of the universe where this happened, and we get to sit and watch it and then see him like run around the table giving high fives to everybody feels like they won. It's like the big bad wolf is gone.
Right.
Left the green chip on the table. They said, hey, you want this green chip on the way out? Like, it doesn't end.
Yeah, I think Berkey's just so happy that Phil was exposed, because he's been saying this for so long, right? Haven't you, Berk? Like, you've been saying, like, listen, just play deep stack and you'll find out. And he fuck around and found out real bad the last couple of days.
Oh my God, this is unreal.
He leans on this whole I won 30 out of 32 sessions, but it's like, okay, but you're playing 40 big blinds effective and you're winning less than a buy.
Of course.
So it's like, I asked him, I go, what if I told you that if we both played 32 sessions and you won 30 of 32 and I won 12 of 32, that I think that my profit would be larger than yours.
Right.
And he goes, have you won 12? I'm like,
fucking base.
Man. Like, look, just because I actually swing in this game and don't try to chisel out a quarter of a buy-in every time I sit down doesn't mean, like, don't forget that we're popping off for big ones too.
Right.
Yeah, that's why people love playing with you, man. Like, when you're in the game, there is just a chance that all of the money goes in one way or the other. And that's part of the thrill and excitement of when people play poker for the experience as is versus just going there to show up and do their job.
Big bet Berkey.
Hicks sits deep because he wants to play a big fucking pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people sit that deep and don't want to play a big fucking pot.
That's facts. That is facts. What did you guys think of the whole Robbi dynamic as far as just now post, call it scandal, where she's kind of become a bit of a media darling. She's getting these opportunities to play. I mean, she wasn't scared money as far as I could tell. But, like, I don't know how endless the funds are either. So I know what it's like to be on fixed liquidity out here. Like, whether you have the money or not, in theory, it doesn't matter if you don't have it in practice. You know what I mean? Like,
I would like
good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would like to see Robbi get good. I would like to, like, real good. Like, if you know how great it would be, she's just like in the lab studying, and then she just becomes a killer in the game. What a story that would be!
Oh my God! Like, my take on this entire thing, even after the Hustler situation, is that no matter what happens now until this point, I'm not the judge, jury, executioner, right? But what did happen is this story is infamous, and in her spot with fame can always be leveraged, right? So now having the spot that she's in, being able to play on live streams, being able to do different things, that is just a byproduct of what happened.
Yeah.
Who knows what actually happened? I don't have all of those all that information. You can only speculate, right? But there was definitely a difference in play style from yesterday and the Hustler stream, where someone that did not bluff a single river is finding min raises on the turn with jack high and then calling off. And the antics were way different yesterday than on the Hustler stream. So who knows what's going on, but there is definitely a difference, and acknowledging that it exists is important, in my opinion.
Yeah. David, a guy from Montana, who's just at the last academy, said, "Give her an academy seat, Burke. Get her in the mix. Let's get her in the lab."
I mean, all jokes aside, because it's hard because I have no ill will towards her. I mean, she's pleasant. I truly enjoyed interacting with her.
Mm-hmm.
But what would she be like on Poker Out Loud? Right? I mean, I imagine it would be similar to the post-mortem of the Jack forehand, where it's just if you actually had to have her speak out her thoughts in real time, the story would just change street by street, which actually might be a little bit fascinating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's on the flop, it's okay, well, I have this. I think that he has this. My hand is incentivized to do X, Y, or Z on this type of board texture, yada, yada, do it, right? And then the board texture changes, and all of a sudden it's well, now I think he has all of these other bad hands that I can suddenly beat, so I'm just going to blast. You know, we kind of see this in the early process of learning. Whenever you're relatively new to the game,
mm-hmm.
you portray the story as you want to see it end in your head. And, perhaps that's a bit of what's going on. But I do agree with Landon that the thing that stood out the most to me was the passivity. Every time that many bets went in, it was just a premium. Same thing with jamming. There were no draws that were jammed. She did ultimately bust off stream for a small amount where she check jammed a gut shot. But even though it was too big of a jam, it was a small amount of money. It was 15,000 in a 3-bet pot where there was $5K in the middle, and she just check ripped on 10 deuce 3.
It does look 10. Like she got some coaching or something, because she played just much kind of tighter pre-flop.
Yeah.
And folding queen 10 and the hijack and stuff like that, just really tight.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the stream, so I don't know what the pre-flop stuff looked like.
Yeah, it was just tight, and then
looks like
when she was
cold
calling 3-bets, there were queens and stuff. It was kind of kind of hard to guess what's going on.
Yeah, we'll have to see more. Is she playing today?
Yeah, the next 2 days.
Yeah, next 2 days. So I mean, we'll see how it plays out the more she plays.
Man, this is exciting. Honestly, I like that this podcast is kind of turning into a Live at the Bike post-stream review.
It is.
I actually really enjoy this.
Well, I mean, there was a lot to talk about. So,
how do you guys think this is going to affect Garrett? Is this going to make it easier or harder for him to come back? I would assume it makes it easier now that things feel like they've blown over.
I don't know. Weird spot.
Yeah.
He did say that if Hustler had that $1 million buy-in game, he wants in.
Yeah, but there's no way he'll get in. That's a Keating run game. He was already getting gate kept from those games to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't think that even him coming back is a big enough story to convince Keating that he should be allowed in that lineup. I could be wrong.
Time will tell.
I'd love to play too, but throwing your hat in the ring doesn't really yield you a seat very often. As somebody who was in the environment yesterday where I expected it to be palpable, I expected there to be animosity. Robbi in person is not the same as Robbi on interviews. I grilled her about the Vertucci podcast that she did. And she was like, yeah, he kind of coerced me into saying this, that, or the other. And he was like, hold on. She was mentioning that he has this picture of the penal code for recording a call or whatever, and was gonna put it on his set with my face. And she's like, I asked him about it, and he just went into a tirade about you and asked my thoughts. And as I was getting into it, he's like, wait, we'll talk about it on air. And if you watch the actual interview, it's such a fucking he just keeps begging the question where he's like, so was there any podcasts or influencers or anything along those lines that really stuck out to you? And she just started to duck it a little bit, well, yeah. And he goes, let me rephrase it, and basically just spoon-fed, what do you think about Berkey?
And then afterwards, then afterwards, he's just he's like, we didn't talk about this prior, right? I didn't say anything like that, right?
Yeah, it's his MO. He did the same thing with Mickey.
Yeah.
He did the same thing with
exactly. He's like, hey, I didn't tell you to say this. This is just coming from them. I didn't spoon feed it to them at all.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really know what to think. Like, I don't know what's genuine and what's not. Maybe she really does think the things that she said on the Vertucci pod. Maybe she was coerced there. And if she was coerced there, maybe that's been the case for a lot of interviews. I don't know, man, because the story flip-flops so much. Everything is so inconsistent. But the whole point that I'm getting at is that wasn't what she was like in person at all. And there was no dampening to the game or anything along those lines, right? Like, it was a very pleasant environment, as you guys kind of alluded to.
Right.
And it was like very easy to be there, even though we spent many, many weeks just dissecting and combing through all of these situations. And you know, from our side as the podcast, like, I would like to think that the majority of the effort and energy that we put in was on the security measures for streams as a whole, right? Like, sure, Robbi and Garrett were discussed, but it was hardly the thing that we talked about the most. I think we just were looking for solutions moving forward whenever it came to stream security and things of that nature. But with regards to Garrett coming back, I think part of what may feel like a hesitation for everybody is, will he be well received? Will he be liked? Will he be comfortable in that environment? At first, I would have been like, man, I don't know. Like, for as well as he's done and as wealthy as he probably is, I think I would just, you know, maybe bag it. Like, you're about to start a family. You're in your early to mid 30s. Like, you're one of the smartest people in this industry for sure. There's a lot of things that you're going to be very great at. Maybe it's time to just turn the page. But after yesterday, like, he's going to be just as big of a draw. It's a sideshow. You know, it's a fucking circus. Everybody wants a piece. Everybody wants the interview. Everybody wants the Garrett week, the Robbi week, the Hellmuth week. Like, we're here for it, man. We want to see fucking clowns juggling all day long.
It's true. Like, as even though it is high stakes poker and we can view poker as an art, a skill, a science, whatever, at the end of the day, the reason why it's fun is because it's entertaining. And that's what brings people back.
Yeah. Guap, I sent you a clip just to kind of demonstrate what we were talking about, so it doesn't sound like I'm just bashing for the sake of bashing. It's you
gotta have evidence.
Well, it was sent to me, and it's just like, you know, we never did anything with it because it didn't make a lot of sense. But since we brought it up, I think it's a good time to play it.
Was so toxic that it was. I mean, just anything. And I'm not prodding you. If you want to say no, I'm good. We're good.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I think I experienced.
How about this? Let's just get it right here. Who, if you had to say, have we ever discussed this? No, right? Okay.
No.
Who would, if you had to say an order of 1 through 3, where the biggest, I don't want to say dicks, but the most unfair and whatever, like the most annoying.
That's bait.
There was a particular incident where I'm just like super heated sitting in my hotel room in Vegas, and had a couple glasses of wine, and I said like, fuck you, Berkey. And then he used me as like clickbait or something in his podcast, like with like my middle finger up.
Fuck off, Berkey. You go fuck yourself.
Which is fine. I guess like that's kind of a creative way to like needle yourself when you've just been like told to F you, Berkey. And I can't even remember what made me say that, except that I started recognizing that his podcast was really negative. So for somebody to say that it was for the purpose of making the poker community better, when it really was appearing to be like for the purposes of getting more clicks, is what really didn't rub me the right way.
Well, Robbi, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Did you come in here knowing anything about me and any of these people you mentioned, like a negative? Okay.
No.
We've never discussed it. It's funny because literally this person you mentioned at number 1, Matt Berkey, will probably think that these are setups, because I will tell you, probably the last 6 out of 10 people that I've asked about toxic or this or beefs, he's at everyone's top of their list.
Emotional damage.
So I only say that because I never say shit to anybody, and it may look this way because on my podcast, that's all people say. And, you know, for me, I had a thing with Doug because of how Doug is and some of the things, but it's weird because I reached out to Doug, we got on the phone, we worked it out. Me and Joey always were good, and then this happened, and everyone was under a lot of pressure. I went on to his show and was exhausted and was pissed off about something, and I snapped. He snapped at me, like it kind of whatever. But then you know what? We got on the phone. We made it good because at the end of the day, he's a good person. Even Doug said what someone said about you is like, man, you're much more likable in person than you are online. That's what he said to me, and we're good now. But this guy that you're mentioning is at the top of everybody's list of this. And he was actually probably more in the wrong about his sneakiness and self-servingness of trying to make the poker community better, but it's just a pompous approach. And I even, after all of it, reached out to him on text and said, dude, let's just talk, and like, we don't have to be buddies, but whatever, and just crickets. Your read is right, and I just want to go on record that I never prompt any of my guests to ever say anything about anyone, but it's becoming such a thing that when someone comes on and we talk about the toxic, he's their number one person. So at some point, I think you got to look in the mirror. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not even going to get into what our shit is because I don't even care. But it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a goddamn shame. So it's a crying shame. But yeah, I mean, whatever. Just to put a bow on that, I think that it's unfortunate that everybody involved is kind of being paraded around in a certain way, like in this dog and pony show, where it's not always serving them to their best interest. So it's like, actually, maybe that's not even true. I actually thought Robbi came across pretty well in that interview, and she was able to turn maybe some of the ire to those who were accusatory throughout. And you know, she's really, really, really hammered the Garrett thing of her wanting her money back, and that's probably the biggest sticking point to Garrett coming back. Right? Is like, does any retribution have to take place there? I'm of the opinion that like she gifted him money, and I don't know under what circumstance you could ever ask for it back. But I can kind of see the other side too, where it's just like, we don't know what happened really when the cameras were off.
Yeah, tough spot with like some of the information being public and then other parts of it not being so.
Yeah. So if he comes back, where do you think he plays first?
It's got to be Hustler, right?
Honestly, my take would be whichever game is bigger, or whichever game he thinks will play bigger. That's where I'm at.
I could see a world where it's the problem is if it's Poker Goat, like that's not consistent, right? So like him coming back for a one-off is kind of whatever.
Or like a high stakes poker or no game with no future.
Yeah, but I could see a world where the thing is, like, I don't know how it happens with this looming 130,000 over everybody's head. But I was gonna say I could see a world where they bill a Robbi Garrett type of thing, the same way that the Hellmuth Robbi thing got billed this week, right? Where they're just such a massive draw to whatever stream house wants to host it. And obviously, I'm sure Hustler would be clamoring to do that. What are you eyeballing?
No, I'm like, all right, fine. They can play at Stones Live.
Oh man, imagine. God. Imagine that Justin Kreitis and Postle just show, like that's the game. It's just Robbi, Postle, Garrett. You know, we get fucking Sammy Farhan, a couple old school gamblers in there just to suss out what the fuck's going on.
Man, I remember when we had that conversation after pickleball, when we were like, what if they just had a stream where anything goes? Like whoever's in the game, like access, like find ways to get access to whole cards, just hack the system, say that you know that they have an ace or something, and just start playing poker. It's just the Wild West, and you just stream it.
That would be entertaining.
If they do that, I like Doyle.
Yeah, Doyle wins.
Oh man, legend.
My man is coming out a winner one way or another. He's just shaking down in the parking lot. What are you guys looking forward to today then?
I mean, no, it's just the entire event, right? It's just a spectacle. Yeah. I'm actually looking forward to seeing the stream.
There's no Phil, so I guess that's that. Like, do you think it matters?
Yes, yeah. I think it'll be a little different without him being there. Obviously, like, you know, you're not going to have the Phil Hellmuth blow up, but I mean, it's still going to be entertaining. I'd like to see You know, I'd like to see you win a couple 100K pods.
That's true. Me too. Please. Yeah, no, that's true though. The difference with Phil without Phil, it's honestly, I'm kind of curious to see how the game dynamic looks, how it shifts, because when he's there's kind of like the very clear antagonist, right? Yeah. So without the inherent antagonist, how will the table dynamics change? We'll find out.
Everyone else always acts well when Phil's there, and kind of everyone else plays up to Phil, and that's what's really entertaining to watch, I think.
Yeah, he is
having people needle Phil and then Phil reacting to that. That's the best.
He's the person that people love to hate, and I remember WSOP series time, and we were talking about this when it comes to the antics, this, that, whatever. I get it. I understand.
Yeah. I think that what Phil really brings to the table that is maybe not recognized enough, games, especially for good table talk, games need an antagonist, right? They need an outlet for the needles to fly. And Phil just plays that role perfectly.
100%.
I've noticed that games that Lynn and I are in together, we play off of each other in that way too, where we make each other kind of the antagonist of the game. And it allows other people to kind of insert themselves and use us as targets. It's hard to do when you don't have someone to banter with, right? I expect today to be the exact opposite. I don't think any needles are going to get slung because everybody fucking loves Kmart. Everybody loves, I mean, largely everybody in the public eye loves Robbi. Eric Hicks is a hero, not a villain. You know what I mean? So it's now you'll notice that I banter a lot with Ozzy Al because he's the other pro in the game, and I know that I can shit talk him and he knows it's not personal, right? It's just a means of kind of us both wallowing in the misery of losing in a lineup like this and trying to keep the needles flying and stuff. It's just not the same. It doesn't hit the same, right? Because neither of us are as big as a Hellmuth is to the game, or even a Robbi in this instance.
Yeah, it's true. He really is a larger than life character. Kind of just is the case, right? And the only way that can then be shifted is if there is a draw or someone that can play a role similar and kind of be that person.
People care about his rise and fall, right? Yeah. So as long as one or the other happens, everybody's happy.
Right.
It's the time where he just flatlines and everyone's like, why is Phil buying it for $10,000? This is fucking obnoxious.
Yeah, honestly, if Phil got a massive fucking W yesterday and won 500K, that would be another storyline too.
Yeah.
Huge. We would be talking about how he's the greatest to ever do it in all realms instead of just tournaments.
Do you think we'll ever see Phil play deep stacked high stakes poker again?
No, I think 2 sessions was his limit.
I think so too. I think he learned his lesson. It was an expensive lesson, and I think he's sharp enough not to put himself in that situation again.
I feel bad for the Stake Kings investors on that one. Honestly, that actually really does feel so shitty. If you've every time Phil put high stakes action on Stake Kings and you had a piece and he won 30 out of 32 sessions and you kept the same piece and then you took the same piece for these 2 games and just have gone from slight win, down astronomical. It's RF in the chat, man.
Yesterday was the day that the S&P 500 crashed for all those holdings.
Yeah.
It's no!
Yeah. Oh, man.
I just woke up today to the bad news.
Yeah, red alert.
Yeah, my stock called off with kings on a four flush.
My stock can't believe that he had lost with aces when he actually had kings.
Yeah. All right, I don't want to get out of here just yet. I don't want to let Euan off the hook. I know I cut off a little bit of his backstory and stuff, and for what it's worth, I'm just getting to know you. I can't say enough good things about you. I've enjoyed all of our conversations. I think that for not having played a ton of live poker and having learned the game through the online sims and whatnot, you have a really zoomed out perspective of how this space works. I think maybe talk a little bit about, we were kind of having a conversation of how things are so different in the live world versus online. Maybe talk a little bit about those 2 perspectives and how you deal with that duality.
Yeah, well, firstly, very, very kind of you to say that. Thank you. It's been good to get to know you over the last week or so. Sort of kind of like the differences between coming from an online background into the live realm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of think it's really quite similar. I think people like to think they're too different. I think just largely the difference is you can't get in volume live. So you need to make sure that your win rates are much higher. Otherwise, you're just going to like never realize your win rate and you're going to go on 6 swings either way.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like in the tournaments, you gotta make sure instead of winning at like a 15% ROI, which is like a pretty decent win rate online, like you're going to get torched if you do that live and you're never going to like realize and kind of be able to make stable livings through it. So you have to like reach the 50% or even 100% ROI. So you have to be so much ahead of the competitions. You got to be like buying in early to the tournaments and like properly grinding it out and making sure that you like a really at like peak performance in the deep run spots. And then there's just so many like individual things about kind of how the player pools are different. So like while I was saying it's kind of similar, there's like massive inconsistencies of like people just like never bluffing in some spots and just like never folding in some spots in a live realm, where it's kind of online people just play better. That's kind of what I think it is. And you just have, again, opportunities just to have like massive win rates. Like you're talking about these games where you're like 1,500 big blinds deep, where you've got a opportunity for a much bigger win rate there than you do on like an online 100 big blind cash game where everybody's playing pretty similar pre-flop. So it's just impossible to have huge win rates. But then you can win crazy amounts when you come and like play a game like the one at Live at the Bike, or just down in Bellagio or Aria or the Win.
Yeah, and like you understand this, I guess, to a bigger degree than just your own personal anecdotal experience. Like you run a stable that you're trying to kind of meld these two worlds together. Am I getting that right? Like you're basically starting people online and when they're
so we kind of, the model that we use is like having people play online and like getting much better from online, where like even if you're kind of a good winner online at like reasonable stakes, it's still hard to like generate really high hourlies playing online. But what it allows you to do is, as soon as you can beat like mid stakes online, you can come into the live arena and kind of almost play any public stakes available, and you're going to be one of, if not the best player at any table, just because you're so dialed in and you're so accurate from playing online that your win rate is just going to be massive playing live. So you're kind of using online almost as a study tool to come into live and then just like beat up on everybody.
I like that.
Do you think that there is some sort of loss rate or adjustment period where you're taking all of that kind of precision from online?
So never a loss rate. Never a loss rate. I don't think there's going to be any time where you're actually losing in a game, but there's going to be
no, not losing in a game, just a reduction of win rate because
for sure.
You're bluff catching.
Yes. I mean, you become more sharp and you realize that the old guy 3-bets you on the river, like your second nut flush is
no good.
It's no good. Yeah. And
how do you kind of deal with that, as because I assume you're doing like some coaching with these players as well, so like that's a lot of mental game basically. How do you kind of navigate that arena with your horses?
Right. I mean, you just talk through things, like you look at the hand histories, like analyze where there's mistakes being made, like try and work out kind of like the thought process that is causing mistakes, kind of, rather than like sticking on to one individual decision. If you can like get crystal clear thought processes, then kind of like you solve the problems in the future, rather than just like solving this one example of some random board that like you're never going to see again. So it's kind of, I think, focusing always on decision making rather than like the decisions made is is like so much more kind of beneficial to long term. And then like kind of what you were saying on the mental game, it can be like the swings you have live in terms of like big blinds can be like, considering the win rates that like you think you can have, the swings can be so much bigger than the online swings. I mean, we were talking about this the other day, just because like you said, like how many thousand big blind pots have you won with one pair? Well, online kind of never. That's just like never ever going to happen. I mean, because you're buying 100 big blinds, so maybe you play some 400 big blind pots like a few times a week. So you never really play the 1,000 big blind pots, and then those 400 big blind pots are going to be like set over set in a 3-bet pot or whatever. So it's there's just, but that's again coming back to the reason you can have those 1,000 big blind pots with one pair is because the opportunity for massive win rate is so much higher when you're playing live, and people's stack off thresholds are so different to what they should be. Like sometimes they just call when they have kings and it comes to 4-flush, right? Obviously you should never do that, but win rate opportunities are so much higher because people make such big mistakes. And like everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes the whole time. I like play awful sometimes, but it's about just trying to limit those mistakes and capitalize on other people's mistakes.
Yeah, we were talking about this a bit, and the way that I like to view it is we're like the entire pool is always going to consistently make mistakes, and EVs just exchange throughout those mistakes. So it's not really a matter of just capitalizing on what your opposition does. It's also a matter of recognizing that you're sacrificing EV in some spots as well, and that's kind of just okay. You kind of mentioned that the way that you navigate this with your students is to put a big emphasis on the process rather than on the result or on the tactic itself. I really love that. Like when Landon kind of presented you as a potential coach for us, it was just like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, he sounds like he's pretty sharp, but is he going to feel comfortable like teaching to a bunch of people who mostly play 2-5 live, 5-10 live, and have very little online experience? Because it's a different world. And from what I've experienced, most of the people who are very sharp at online learn the game backwards. They learn from, just running thousands of spots and understanding the tactics at a very zoomed in lens, or through a very zoomed in lens. And then eventually they arrive at the kind of global strats and the process that goes into all of these decisions that generate EV. How did you kind of flip that process, or like what led you down that path? And kind of speak a little bit to what your teaching methodologies are sort of like.
So I kind of think the people that come across from kind of online to live, where they make the most mistakes is giving the pool way too much credit, and kind of like that, and then just trying to like own people. Like they just go for a bluff, even though they know their hand shouldn't really bluff, or it should like bluff mixed frequency. And then they might even think the guy is like probably going to call too much, but they go for it anyway because there's like big ego problems and like kind of like entitlement of like, I want to win the hand. Like I had a good bluff opportunity. Like in live poker, it's so difficult to.
Landon knows all about that.
Yeah, but it's difficult because you play 30 hands an hour or whatever it is, maybe less, and sometimes you play 0 hands in that hour. It's like not uncommon at all to be dealt 30 like folds in a row, and then kind of when people play, they kind of often just like the entitlement of I've not won a pot in ages, or so like making sure that you're solid in kind of being unemotional about those sort of things, like not getting married to any hand, which is like a huge problem I think people have. It's like, especially when playing deeper stacked, because people come from online backgrounds where like if you have an overpair in a 3-bet pot, like you don't often fold, right? But now you're 400 big blinds deep, you have an overpair in a 3-bet pot, well, like that can significantly go down in value as lots of money goes in, and people kind of just have two similar stack off thresholds.
Yeah, let me quickly interject when it comes to the idea of the bot people being emotionless or trying to strive for the idea of emotionless, because there's a difference of trying to shut out the emotions that you feel or coming to terms that you have them as a human and then still dealing with them appropriately, where you know that, okay, I know that this hand in this iteration has gone poorly for me, even though my hand is worth so much. I emotionally feel attached, but I know the response is to let go. And that's a bigger step to me now than it used to, where when I was grinding online, only caring about sims, it's like, okay, yeah, of course you're supposed to feel nothing. Because you never truly feel nothing in this game. And you're never supposed to feel nothing in this game. When you're especially playing a live arena where you're playing against people and there's certain things that are not actually zero EV in practice, but they are in a theoretical realm. So now coming to terms with your emotions and trying to make the best decision that comes from that without completely trying to neglect it and chuck it in the dust is what separates the good players from the great players.
Yeah, and I think as well, when so many like hands are multi-way to the flop as well, like people...
so many.
But just every hand goes 3 or 4 ways to every flop because no one 3-bets. And then like if they do 3-bet, people just cold call and like...
a lot of limps.
Yeah, exactly.
Limpin's pimpin'.
So when you go like massively multi-way to these boards, like again, people just like overvalue hands. And like, I think one of the traps that you can fall in from playing online where like, don't often have multi-way hands because not many people play calls. Like most people play 3-bet only, apart from when they're on the button or the big blind. So you're not used to the multi-way pots. And then instead of it being 3 ways, it's now 5 ways. So like people put in too much money with like 1 pair hands and like they're raising with hands that like do super poorly on like runouts where the board is dynamic and it changes, and like just adjusting to those sort of things is critical, and it's impossible to get in the reps of that online. So you kind of have to come and have that adjustment period, like you were saying, where like you get used to like playing 4-way pots and like get used to playing a 4-bet pot where somehow 4 people have seen the flop and SPR is still 4, and it's just like, well, how good is my hand really? Right. And it's I mean those things like it's hard to deal with, but again, like there's still inaccuracies and mistakes from your opponents that lead to like, again, huge opportunities for win rate. So you just get to win a lot more in terms of like big blind per 100 win rate in a live game than you ever would in any online game.
Yeah, there's certainly the trials and tribulations aspect of going through the experience yourself, realizing how different things are, adapting and changing as an individual from the strategy that you think you know that will make more in one environment versus another, and then being able to adapt and flow into the sense of what actually is happening in real time.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
It's also worth like saying some of the live games are really tough. Like the 10, 20, 40 games in Vegas are still like, they're hard. You can't just like come in and beat them if you're not doing well. Like they're really good players that play them. Like often it's like the same sort of players that are playing online in like similar games. So it's like the opportunities for win rate in those games is often just not as much, and you do have to just be like studied and like just accurate in every spot, which is difficult.
Are those games deep?
Yeah, they play big.
Yeah, I mean they're just deep and they're tough, and like you just have to be studied. But like when you come out and you play the 2-5 games, that's like where like you can have massive like big blind per hours and stuff where you go 4 ways and then people put in too much money.
Yeah, people are sort of saved by the time that is not wasted, but how slow the game is, where if people were losing at the rates they are losing live, but playing in an online environment, the amount of money that would get removed from the pool would happen so fast. And it's almost non-comprehensible to online players when they transition to the live arena, where when you're playing 2-5 online, you'd expect your big blinds per 100 to be, if you're the best in the pool, double digits, where you're winning low double digits, like 10. And that's your a top 95 plus percentile in the field.
I mean, like that's like the max.
Exactly. And now when you show up and play live and look at it through big blinds per 100, you can genuinely, as the best in the field, win somewhere between 30 and 50. Reasonably.
That's wild.
I mean, even more if the game's super deep and, and good, right?
Because it's not actually 2-5. Right? It's playing like 2-5, but you're actually playing X 100 big blinds deep, and there's a straddle on sometimes, and you can...
When a few people are putting a straddle on and a double straddle, that's just extra money for the rest of the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get out on this. This is kind of my final question. How did you then, like, how did you become such a process-oriented studier? And maybe Landon, you could speak to this too, because my experience with Landon is he kind of represented the opposite. He was a goal-oriented studier, right? It was, I played this hand, I want to look at this spot. Now I have an answer to this spot, and I'll work backwards as I put in more volume into understanding these things. From everything I can tell, you're very much more process-oriented, where you're starting from the most zoomed-out scope and kind of honing in as you get a little bit better. Were you always this way, or was this something that kind of clicked somewhere along the process? And is that like how you intend to teach both your stable and when you create content?
So, I mean, I kind of always been process oriented, I think, with poker. I kind of came in to poker like working with solvers, and like I've always like just try to have more zoomed out approaches, kind of learn, kind of run scripts and have like lots of different flops to look at, and kind of learn flop strategies across the board and how things change on different boards, rather than like looking at hand histories and running hands from hands that I've played, and more kind of like broad, like we said, like trying to understand what's different, like what changes to change my strategy, and kind of like that. And that's kind of absolutely how I like coach and try and teach, is that kind of always look at things from zoomed out, like look at effective ways of studying, so that kind of you can do the study on your own as well, because that's just a way higher like use of both people's time, like coach and student. If you can go away and like learn things while you're not on call together, then like the time that you spent on call is obviously been way more valuable.
Yeah. For me personally, looking back through my own progress within poker and studying, a lot of my learning came from the need of instant gratification, right? Where you look at a solve and the solve gives you the answer for what you are looking for from a combo perspective. You then can slowly get a small puzzle piece to the big picture. But when you have the heuristic approach of understanding how the global strategies look, where the bluffs come from on the aggregate, and where the nuance lies, will allow you to make greater strides than just looking at the spot in itself and thinking, I had ace king on 10-7 deuce in a 3-bet pot, small blind versus cutoff, what am I supposed to do? But when you start in the game as so young and so new to the idea that there are answers in the back of the book, there is an inherent want to find those answers as quickly as possible to sustain your ego. Because if you now say that you're following the answers in the back of the book says this, I'm doing this, it makes you feel like you're good at what you do. But in reality, the constructs aren't the same. And the difference between something like chess and poker is chess always starts with the same ranges, right? Each player both has the same amount of pieces. Where in poker, you're just operating on the gray scale of this is what it looks like in theory. But if you know where the bounds are and where the strategy comes in and where the check raises come from and why they want to use certain hands over others, certain patterns will just inherently exist within a game that has a lot of patterns in it. And as humans, we like to try to find them. So once you try to find the patterns, it's easier to then make the puzzle piece fit.
So I guess speaking to that, have you felt like there's been a shift in the way you've approached study and the game as a whole now that you are a little bit more technically sound? Like, do you find yourself more in the process-oriented thinking? Because it sounds like you've worked your way back there.
I'm along the lines of, I still very much care about the micro because that's just not who I am, but what's important to me is looking at spots and making sure that I have the right ideas in mind in place. But at the same time, realizing that it's not the be-all, end-all of a situation, because you and I had a back and forth that was relatively eye-opening when I found a bluff in a spot when I had the impression of it's so hard to find bluffs here. How do people actually bluff here in this situation? And I still mixed for it. And you said something along the lines of, why would you mix for a spot if you think it's under bluffed and people overfold? Why would you not just go for it pure? And my response was, I still want to make sure my frequencies are in check and aligned. But you can't really live in both realms of this thing says it's good, you should kind of calibrate yourself, but at the same time operate under different circumstances in a practical sense. So honestly, like, end of the day, it's still a fucking work in progress, and poker isn't easy, but it's definitely enjoyable to try to figure it out along the way.
Yeah, I think it's very fair. What are your plans moving forward, Euan?
I'm in Vegas for the next 10 days or so. Then going back to the UK, there's a tournament series on. And then after that, just kind of playing, and then back here for the summer for the series. So making a software course, which will be released in... I can't remember.
You tell me.
Fuck.
Sometime in the near future.
Yeah, sometime in the near future.
May.
Yeah.
I think it's early May. Your course will be out.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're in February right now?
Yep. We are.
Still February.
Last time we checked.
Okay, so yeah, the Brocus course comes out in
March.
Early March. Oh, so I guess you're April.
Yep.
Landon is May.
I'm May.
Okay.
It's gonna be May. That's not a dad joke.
That's a rad joke.
And on that note, it has been a wonderful episode of the Only Friends podcast. I'm so glad that you're here with us, and we are looking forward to Matt on day 2 of High Stakes at the Bike Week. Please don't make me lose money again today. This is all personal.
I'll do the best that I can.
Let the deck choose you, man.
I'm going to try. While we're closing this out, don't forget that we have 2 academies coming up. We have our final Poker Out Loud Cash Academy this April 15th to the 18th. There are still seats available for that. If you are interested in doing the Poker Out Loud version of the Academy, head to academy.solveforwhy.io. Again, that's going to be the final version of that we run this year. We're going to go back to the old format, 2 tables, no Poker Out Loud, just gameplay after the World Series. Secondarily, we're doing our one and only MTT Academy for the year. Matt Hunt is going to be the lead instructor for that. That is going to be May 24th, I believe, 24th to the 27th.
Correct.
Again, you can head to academy.solveforwhy.io for that. Just click in the top banner. You'll see it announcing the MTT Academy. We're also going to have more information available for you on the website there if you want to see how the days break down and what the format will be. From LA, the Bicycle Hotel and Casino, I'm Matt Berkey. These are my only friends. We're out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
This fucker took my outro.
Peace.
Good show, guys. Unbelievable. This fucking guy. Thanks, Euan. All right, well, now we can talk a bunch of shit. Oh, hey, welcome back. Thank you. You did great.